The content you're about to enjoy comes from the archives of The Best You. We're devoted to the very best in personal development, with a platform and resources dedicated to inspiring and changing people's lives. At The Best You, we work with the world's leading writers and trainers on the evolution of the self, and people whose journeys have been affected by their work and words. For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co. Hi, welcome. I'm Bernardo. I'm the Chief Inspirational Officer of The Best You, and today I'm in the studio in LA, and I've got the great pleasure of interviewing Michelle Patterson, who's an entrepreneur. She's an author. She's been in the business of running businesses for a long time. So, Michelle, thank you so much.
It's so welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here today. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? What were your early years like?
I'm a native Southern Californian, which is unusual. So I was born in Los Angeles and raised in San Diego. Went to school at Loyola Marymount University. So go Bruins. My daughter is a UCLA. So I'm on the whole mindset. She's getting ready to graduate from UCLA, and LMU was Lions. But both in Los Angeles, and had just stayed down here, raised my family. I've got my husband and I are almost empty nesters. We're celebrating 20 years this August being married, and we've got one that just graduated from high school and one that's graduating from UCLA pretty soon. So it's exciting. It's a new time for us.
And what was school like for you? Did you enjoy it?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I started out, I was this really awkward, very quiet kid. I had scoliosis and had to wear a back brace, which was very attractive. Bernard. It went right up through the collar, and so that was interesting. But I had an opportunity when I was a kid. I loved to write and would write all the time just to express how I was feeling, and got an opportunity to interview the governor of the state of California. And that really had a shift in what I was doing. I was asking him very political, important questions. It was Governor George Duke Majan. What's your favorite hobby? How many kids do you have? What's your passion? And he looks at me and he says, Michelle, that was the best interview I've ever heard. And I can remember, I was 12 years old, and I can remember at that moment, my little back, I straightened up tall. And it was the first time that somebody outside of my own mom and dad said, you matter, you count. And I left that and decided I was going to run for student body president of my high school, which I did. And I was president at Loyola Marymount University, and I worked in local city government and worked in Sacramento. But I got that bug of wanting to be involved with service and really contributing in that fashion. Any
teachers or anyone that inspired you in your early years?
I had some Governor George Duke Majan was definitely, one of those individuals that took the time to really inspire this 12-year-old awkward little girl. I also, I have amazing parents. Both my mom and my dad, the oldest in their family. They taught me that, through hard work, you can accomplish anything that you want to go after. And my dad would say that to me is, you can do it. What is it that you want? What makes your heart sing? What is it that you want to go after? And that's what I did. Ever since I was a little kid, I was very fortunate to have that supportive system. My dad was a police officer, and he ended up representing police officers for California. My mom ran a daycare center out of our home. Okay. And, we're just really hardworking, but both the oldest in the family, very focused, very persistent, and driven people, but worked hard.
So what was your first real job as such?
My first real job was I had a company called, it was Mary Poppins Babysitting.
Oh, cool.
I was 11 years old. I charged $1.10 an hour.
Wow.
And I remember setting out my flyers. In fact, that's how my mom started her business, is I had to go back to school I had this amazing, really babysitting job where I babysat over the summer, put together my 10-speed bike, and was able to purchase my first big purchase, which was my 10-speed bike. But when I went back to school, I kept bringing the kids over to my house because it was the neighbor kids, and my mom said, wow, these kids are great. And the parents talked to my mom, and my mom ended up going ahead and opening up her business and starting it. Yeah, so it started really young. I ended up working for a publicly held company for 13 years. It was the largest recruiting firm in the country. And that was a great experience. I encourage individuals that want to be an entrepreneur, take time to work for a company as well. I mean, pull in your different assets. There's pluses and minuses on both sides. An obvious one is, you get that reoccurring paycheck. But for me, I have always been of the mindset, if I go in, I do anything 150%, and I treat it as my own. So when I left there, the recruiting firm, I ended up starting up my own recruiting firm. And we got an investor and were able to go ahead and open up locations around the country and just got some really amazing experience. But the problem is it wasn't making my heart sing. It wasn't really kind of taking, hold of what am I passionate about? What is it that I fall in love with every single day?
And when did you start questioning that?
You know what? When and I was doing it was accounting, finance, and IT. Which the ironic thing is, I'm married to a CPA, who's the just my rock. He's the light of my world, and I just talking about accounting and finance. It didn't light me up. It didn't really excite me, and it was really in the beginning that I had these feelings, but. I think sometimes we're a little slow, to make that move. But I was 13 years with the same company and worked that. And what I was able to do was be a national sales trainer, for that company. I had the highest performing region with that organization. And so it taught me a lot about working with communities, working with teams, and how to really build successful teams, and how to be able to push, past when you have tough numbers that come out, or when you have an off day or an off month or an off sales forecast. What can you do to be able to go ahead and rally together and effectively push through and have success?
So when you had your own business and you were running that for how long?
So I did that for about 7 years. 7 years,
and then you started questioning kind of, what else can I do, or what else is there?
I think it really was looking at, I believe, that we're gonna go ahead and get to the pearly gates, and God's gonna say, what did you do with the gifts I gave you? And you're gonna have to say, okay, did I squander them, or did I use those gifts? And I felt like I wasn't utilizing the gifts that I had. I love working with women, especially women that are entrepreneurs, women that are going into business, women that are looking for being able to get that promotion. Where's that piece that gets them to take that leap? How is it that they believe in themselves? And we have, as human beings, we have this record that plays that is, am I enough? Do I matter? Do I count? And so being able to go ahead and work with women and letting them know how brilliant they are. And my biggest thing is recognizing, none of us have all the gifts. None of us were given all the gifts, but we each have special gifts. And what happens is when we collectively come together, that's when the magic happens. That's when we're really able to shine. And so it's not about one of us going in and doing what we can do. It's really about how collectively can we work together and build.
So when you started questioning the company that you built up, what happened next? What did you start doing? You went into something completely different.
Yeah, you know what? I looked for individuals that had the areas of specialty that I didn't have. Mm-hmm. And recognizing that I can't be everything to everybody, but what I can be is get into my lane and do what I do really well. And I love the interaction. I love promoting. I love public speaking. I love inspiring and igniting to a cause. And it's something that I have so much passion around it that it just comes naturally. If somebody were to come to me and say, okay, Michelle, I want you to get up and speak in front of 10,000 people, it doesn't make me feel, scared. It makes me feel like I'm stepping into being able to share my experiences and what I've learned.
But I wanted to know, when you decided to do something different, you went into music, promoting events?
In events.
Yeah.
Right.
So you employed people, but why did you want to go into that? It's obviously very different to what you were doing before. What attracted you about that?
So I was doing it, some of it at the same time. Okay. And started it out. It was a fun hobby. And in fact, my husband pointed it out. I would come home and I would work on a small little event, Taste of Ladera. We set it up a mile from my house, and it grew to thousands and thousands of people. And it was one of the largest events in Orange County in Southern California. But I would work on it, and I'd be up all hours of the night working on this. And my husband came home and he goes, you spend more time on that than you do on your own business. And you clearly love it. I mean, you're enjoying it. So why don't you look at doing that? That's what I encourage people too. It's the money will follow if you're doing what you love. And he looked at it. He said to me, he goes, you love throwing a huge party. You love making people happy. You love bringing people together and having this huge event. And so it did. It grew, several thousand individuals.
Describe the event for those.
Yeah, so it's we had 22 not-for-profits. We had 100 plus exhibitors. We had everything from Berlin playing to Sugar Ray play to English Beat to Bow Wow with Annabella the Wind. Mm-hmm. I mean, just some really cool. So, I was going to say our generation. Mm-hmm. So I'm a total 70s, grew up in the 80s, at 47. So that was our music. Yeah. And being able to go ahead. And so we'd have these performances. I mean, just amazing. And again, it was a huge, just this garden party where we had different wineries that would exhibit, and just this amazing event. So we're actually going to be doing that again and putting that on. And it's a great event that does a lot of wonderful work for the community. Money goes back to the schools, money goes back to the local charities, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, it got so big, we had carnival rides where at one point it was like, you start looking, it's like, okay, this is huge, and in a lot of ways we outgrew the space that we were in.
And for those, because I know there's a lot of people that are attracted to maybe, putting events together, but they're obviously kind of respect and are very scared of putting something like this together. The logistics of putting something like this, obviously it was a thought in your head and then all of a sudden it happens. There's a lot of work behind the scenes, isn't there?
It is. And you can appreciate that because you're in the same line of work that I am. I think there's nobody really that kind of sits down with you and says, okay, here's a pitfall. Yeah. Don't go this route. Don't go this route. And, and I've made, all the mistakes, there is, but you learned from those mistakes and hopefully, not always. And you really be able to sit back and it's looking at what worked, what didn't work, how you can, grow the event. And what's happening now too is with the internet, so often, individuals, especially with conferences, is because we're live streaming, they can watch it from their home. Yeah. They don't need to go in, which we experienced with my last event. I mean, we had a huge surge of individuals that they don't want to go to a conference, but what they want to do is they want to watch it at their own leisure and be able to take notes and be able to go back and revisit that particular talk that really touched them. So that's what's been exciting, is just to see how our world is evolving, in regards to the internet. And what I love is I can have individuals from different parts of the world partake in the event when they're not even there, but they can comment, they can respond, they can engage and be a part of it. And even though they're not physically, in the actual event, they're there and they're part of it because of the internet and what that has done for us.
If you're interested in working with me, contributing to the magazine, maybe speaking at any of our many events around the world, partnering or licensing The Best You, go to www.thebestyou.co.
And tell me about how you've evolved into the Women's Network and your work now.
Yeah, so I have I've had the honor of working with some amazing groups that are out there. Had a chance to speak at the United Nations. Had a chance to be named Women of the Year for the World Boxing Council.
Amazing.
So the WBC Cares, had a chance to work with them. And just putting these events in different locations and doing some different things. And it is amazing how when women, come together, what we're able to accomplish together. And we have amazing men that support and that give really great guidance. But being able to come together, it's one of the fastest ways in our world right now is when you give women the resources and the tools to be successful. It's one of the fastest ways for us to make change in our world. And by collectively, and that was the mission, is let's bring these women's groups together because we are very fragmented. We're working so hard, but we're working independently of one another. So how can we collectively bring those groups together to be able to get the mission, done and not have, and I refer to this a lot, is, not have the bad guys winning, and what I refer to that, and what I mean by that is when you look at some of the things that are happening in our world, because we're working so hard and because we're not collaborating and not working together, you've got, you look at stuff like human trafficking. I mean, it's surpassed drug trafficking. I mean, it's the most lucrative right now.
It is multi-billion.
That's out there. And the unfortunate people don't realize, and it's an ugly topic to talk about, but, you could still make money off of somebody even after they die because there's body parts that can be sold. And so right now in our world, without coming together and without working collectively together, you have issues like that are happening. And the big push, and with having Women Network and with having the California Women's Conference and what we're doing with Global Women Foundation, is being able to go ahead and recognize your gift and your gift and your gift. And then we collectively come together, and then you show up, with a can of whip ass and 100 million women, and laws get changed and things happen, and we're able to put those pieces together. But when you're by yourself and you're working independently, it's hard.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was going to say is that unfortunately a lot of people tend to try to do these things on their own, and there's nothing more important than having a support group of like-minded people that either mentor you or support you to be part of, because it's only natural and it helps massively, doesn't it?
It does, and I think that's one of the things as entrepreneurs, as living your best life. We talk a lot about that, and you and I have talked about this before, is, what are people doing to live their best life? Well, what they're doing is they're getting out of their comfort zone. They're asking for the help. They're asking for the support. A lot of times ego sets in, and, we don't want to ask, and we don't want to. And
entrepreneurship can be a very lonely business, can't it?
Very, very lonely. Very lonely. And, so what does that mean to you, and how are you showing up? I had a person who said to me, one of my friends, Damien, and he says, Michelle, I don't work with somebody that hasn't had failure, that hasn't had a BK, that hasn't had, that's an entrepreneur. And I'm like, wow, that's a pretty bold comment. He goes, because that's when you really get the experience. That's when you really get the understanding of what it means to be able to have perseverance and fall down, and what does it mean to be able to, brush yourself off and say, okay, you know what, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to push forward. I'm going to do this. And a lot of that is not going at it alone, not being by yourself, and recognizing I'm going to check my ego, and I'm going to ask for the help, and I'm going to ask for the support.
Tell us a little bit more about the California Women Conference.
Yeah, so it's an event that was started by Governor George Duke-Majan 30 years ago. And he started it because women were opening up businesses and they were failing at a rapid rate. And he had said, you know what, I am going to go ahead. I'm going to bring all these resources together. And so when you go to the event, it has everything from 100 plus thought leaders that are coming together that have advice and coaching and mentorship, where you're literally sitting down. We have speed mentoring where you're working with them, one-on-one, to be able to go ahead and get this information that you need, whether it's putting together a business plan, whether it's how to do a pitch and how to go raise capital, all the different kinds of things that you want to do. I mean, right now in our world, we have less than 3% of women receive venture capital funding. I mean, less than 3%. Oh. And so where do you go to be able to go ahead and get the answers that you need? And also recognizing, again, we're not given all of the skill sets. So recognizing, I need to find others that have different areas of expertise, and putting a team together to be able to go ahead and push that forward. We had one that I was really, really excited about that Pat did for the group, and it was our speak off. And we had individuals sign up, and they showed up and did a whole speakers, a speak off. And that was exciting just to see individuals that were, really wanting that mentorship and wanting that feedback on how to speak in front of an audience and what was involved in preparing their talks and then delivering those talks.
Right.
And that was a really cool thing to do.
And tell me about the Global Women Foundation.
Yeah, so the Global Women Foundation is set up where we're going in and working with different organizations to help get their message out. And when you look at right now, we've got women's groups that are doing amazing things, but nobody knows about them. And so how can we go ahead and put a spotlight on that organization, be able to push that information out through our network and be able to share, what it is that they're doing. And so when you look at, we've created a blog, we've created a resource center, similar to what Governor George Duke-Majan did, and that is being able to have these pieces. The other thing that I'm really proud of is when you look at, and it's very in line with the best you, but is, who are the happiest people on the planet? I mean, what is it that they're doing? And Gallup Poll did a study, and Gallup Poll showed that there was 5 areas that individuals worked on to be able to live their best life. And it was career, physical, financial, social, and community. And so they went out and they found that with career, it was as simple as even people that retired, but it was individuals that, what's their purpose? When they get up in the morning, where are they going to spend their time? What are they going to work on? So that was the career piece. The financial piece was really fascinating, and it was looking at individuals that had the basic essentials. Once they had the roof over their head, the basic essentials covered, the happiness meter didn't jump off the charts. When they were making the millions, those aren't the happiest people. It was the people that had those bare essentials. And that was an eye-opener for me, really a big, big eye-opener. And then you looked at, social. And social is the relationships that you have. And we see this, people who, they put so much emphasis on their career and then they come home and their home life is out of sorts and their relationships aren't there. One of the ones that really stuck out at me was community. And community is, how are you of service? And the happiest people in our world are people that are giving back. And one of the best ways to get out of just a funk, and if you're feeling depressed or you're feeling overwhelmed, is stop what you're doing and be of service. Help somebody else, provide some insight, give some guidance, but do something for somebody else. It's the fastest way for you to change your paradigm and change where you're at and get out of that kind of funk that you're in. So that's the one that I don't know if you're this way, the one that's my least favorite is the physical.
Yeah.
That's the one that always gets put on the back burner. That's really, really, really important.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, again, just having the energy to do the things that you want to do.
So it gives you a clearer mindset as well, doesn't it?
Clearer mindset, and recognizing, there's always a meeting, there's always something that needs to be done, but saying, I'm going to have, I have a meeting with Jim today. Jim happens to be, GYM, but I've got to go ahead and hold that time, or go for a walk, or do yoga, or meditate. And that's the one that, for me, I constantly have to pay attention to because it gets thrown out, always. Just not at the top of the list.
Well, I understand the whole idea about the community. I kind of want what we're very passionate about in The Best You is about making the best you a better world. And that's really what it means is that we are responsible, us that are in the business of inspiring, helping others, communicating and engaging, is to make sure that we are passing that message on so people are aware of their responsibility to make the world a better place. Because, if not, it's kind of like, as I call it, selfish development. There's a lot of selfish development which is simply about whoever is doing it, just about benefiting themselves. Because ultimately we hold the flag of change. I think, there's a lot of people, and it's a massively growing business. People are starting to understand the importance of investing in yourself and especially more in the US. So I get it. I understand that.
That's so interesting to me that it's more the US, whereas, so you feel like other countries, other places have caught on to that sooner than the US?
Well, no, I think in the US there is that responsibility. I'm just saying is that the actual industry as such, this is just my opinion, that the business of personal development really has to understand the responsibility that we have in order not only to educate people, to make them a better version of themselves, but to make sure that then by making them a better version of themselves, that they have a better surrounding, a better family. They work for a company that has a social responsibility. They also have a global response, that community sense.
Right.
Because if not, it's quite shallow.
It's interesting. So on my drive in, and my traffic, it's like lovely LA traffic. Yeah. But I was talking to one of my girlfriends and she said to me, she goes, yeah, I was talking to a friend and his belief is, and he had a multi-million, $6 million business and running a very successful business, lost everything. And his response is that true happiness is found when you lose. For him, it was when you lose everything.
Yeah. It gives you purpose and clarity.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like those little God winks, some people refer to them, but it's that feeling of, it comes along and you don't really pay attention and then you get a bigger, more of okay, bigger push. And it's like, okay, I need to pay attention to this.
Yeah. If you're interested in watching the video content of this interview and many others, or interested in learning from world leaders and teachers, go to www.thebestyou.online.
So what would you say your best assets are?
My best assets, my gift is I can meet people and I sometimes see their gift before they see their gift.
Okay.
And I even despite, even when they're having challenge or they're going through a tough time, I'm able to go ahead and sit down with them and see their gifts. And a lot of times when we're going through a rough time, it's hard for us to see those gifts. And I've had it since I was a little girl. I could meet people and just, I met my husband, met him within 20 minutes, 15 minutes. I was like, oh, met the man I'd marry. Yeah, he was I just knew. It was like, I just knew. And so I think that's probably my biggest gift is being able to go ahead and really be able to inspire and lead, but also meet with people and help them see where their purpose lies and where they're headed, and be able to go ahead and put those pieces together.
When it comes down to someone that's either lost their job or just come out of uni and they're looking at, starting, what do you think the best assets are that they should have, or what should they be learning? How could they, have a successful life and career?
I think the first one is to recognize, and I learned this from Dan Tacchini, who's one of our speakers, great speaker, an amazing coach, and Chris Wise also talked a lot about this, but that self-love. I mean, we're hardest on ourselves. I mean, we really, wreak havoc, in some ways. And entrepreneurs in particular, I mean, a lot of times they're perfectionists. They want everything to go the way you need to go, and it doesn't always happen that way. I mean, sometimes in the midst of, what you might describe as failure it's that golden nugget that comes out afterwards. And so my recommendation is just be able to manage the monkey chatter, that managing that monkey chatter so that you can get through what you're dealing with, so that you can be able to see, and you're not so hard on yourself, but you can see, where those pearls of wisdom lie and where the opportunities lie. Because a lot of times we miss those opportunities. I think about how you and I met. We met, through our dear friend Gail, and it was like, you guys need to get together. And a lot of times it would be like, oh, it's another producer, there's a competitive, and it's why do you have to have it like that? Why not have it be where you come together collectively? How can we support people? And that's why it's so important for me to be able to share feedback that I have of, hey, this is something that didn't work so well, and helping somebody else navigate through that and go through that. But making sure that you recognize how, and Dan Tacchini says our brain is sometimes, they're on a whole other, where it's just spinning. And we don't, oftentimes, we're not thinking clear, when we're facing challenges. So like you said, somebody who loses their job or loses, a big contract, or they're going through challenges, whatever that is, we're quick to want to go ahead and come up with all the things that we did wrong and all the reasons that, we were not successful, versus let's look at it from, okay, what are we learning from this? And who can we reach out to and be transparent and just be open and say, hey, I'm stuck. And how would you handle this? And that's what I'm finding from entrepreneurs who've been there and who are successful. They've had failure in their career path. I mean, big time failure.
And a lot of times entrepreneurs are on a very thin line of failure throughout their careers, but because they're putting everything on the line, aren't they? So
everything on the line, and because of that passion.
Yeah.
And that's where I would say, as I work with women, so closely with women, is it's okay to not have all the answers.
Yeah.
It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, I'm stuck. It's okay to ask for help. And you don't have to come across as, I got it all together, it's perfect. None of us do, And that's probably the thing that I love about entrepreneurs. I mean, I've yet to meet one that hasn't had a situation where they struggled and they've gone through. And it's those that bounce back, that come back, that are widely successful because they learn. They learn from it.
Absolutely. It's feedback. It's necessary feedback in order to grow.
Yeah. Even though it stings, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
It's like, ouch.
Yeah.
I think Oprah Winfrey made a comment, and she had a really, really amazing comment, but she said, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? Now get me out of this.
Yeah.
Get me out of it as fast as, and asking, but it teaches you humility.
Yeah, but I personally think that people underestimate the resilience that they have. I think kind of like, when we're challenged in extreme situations, I don't know, our kids, life and death, we're ultimately resilient and we will always do whatever it takes. So I think people are scared, but it's all part of change. Change is good. And the moment you start reframing as change is good and what am I learning from this, what I'm going to get out of it, you're going to be on this uncomfortable journey for a little while, but focus on what you want, not what you don't want. That's my take.
Well, and I think you bring up a really good point. I mean, one of the things that we do, and oftentimes we don't do it ourselves, which we need to do, and that is, where is it that you want to go? I mean, so often we don't take the time to figure out
our true purpose.
What's our purpose? Yeah. We refer to it as, creating our best life blueprint.
Yep.
And actually sitting down, and we talked about the 5 to thrive, but in each of those 5 areas is what is it that I want to have, in each of those areas. I can, what comes out of adversity is, the other areas get sharpened. It's like sharpening the saw. The other areas end up really shining and coming through for you.
Yeah.
I look at, my husband. I mean, we've gone through challenges. I mean, no couple, we've had our therapy we've gone through. People always look at me, they're like, oh, you guys are the happy couple and everything's great. And I'm like, we work at it.
Yeah.
There's times where, I tried to make him like me and he tried to make me like him. And, and then I realized, wait a minute, this is kind of a good deal. We're so opposite that, if we stop trying to change each other, we can come together. But when you go through tough times, whether it's career or family or whatever it is being able to go ahead and have that support system versus pushing them away. But it's, how can we hold on to each other and help each other through this? And so when you go through tough times, you take count of what you do have, what is important, what is really important.
Absolutely. So what's next for you? What's in the near future for you?
You know what? I'm excited. I'm going to give a shout out to Aaron Young, but I'm working on, and he was one of our speakers. He's a phenomenal speaker, phenomenal coach. But I am right now going through his Unshackled Owner and really giving me the time to be able to go ahead and put that best life blueprint together and map that out. And I was going through the modules that he has and the exercises and just really hearing from him. And he's got a phenomenal story, of adversity and challenges that he's gone through. And so for him to be able to come back, and what he does is he helps companies, build their fortress and insulate. And so they're able to, be able to grow and scale and do the things they want to do. So I'm going through that, and I'm doing something a little different than I've never done before, is really sitting down and giving myself the time. And it's not a lot of time, but like this next 30 days of really evaluating how can I best be of service? How can I best utilize the skills that I have? And really attracting the certain partners that I need to be able to go ahead and have that, mission come to fruition. And being okay with not having it completely mapped out, and recognizing through the training that I'm going through is I'm getting some really great feedback. And I think a lot of times we think as coaches that we don't need coaches.
No, absolutely we do.
Or we don't need coaching. Oh, I got the answer. I know how to do it. And it's...
No, we do.
We do.
Absolutely.
And so I think just in you taking that time to be able to not have like, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do, versus, what's available out there, what new technology is available that can really enhance the gifts that I have, and how can I be of support to an organization for them to help realize their mission.
Okay. Many, many years from now, what would you like your legacy to be?
I mean, I'm most proud, truly, of my family. I mean, I'm most proud of the relationship I have. And again, you constantly work on it. I mean, I've got 2 teenagers in the house. My husband made the comment, last year I thought it was brilliant, but, one walked by and, was crying, and it was like, why are you crying? And they didn't know why. And the other one walked by and was angry, and my husband looked at me and I looked at him, and it was like, what was that? He goes, oh, they're like aliens right now. I mean, they're going through their development and their metamorphosis, and it's exciting, as being almost an empty nester. I'm so proud. I mean, I'm really, really proud of that. So for me, that's the most, it's the most important. And then also too is just, when we put on these events and, having people come back, and the letters that you get, and the feedback of people who've taken what they've learned at the conference and at the events that I do, and they've opened up hospitals, or they've, moved to Africa, or they've been able to go ahead and provide clean water, for hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, just the stuff that happens as a result because of the training and the access and the resources and the tools that we provide. It fills you up.
Yeah.
It lets you know that you're doing what you should be doing.
Yeah. Great. Michelle, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for doing what you do.
No, thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for watching Inspiring People. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
That was great.
For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.